Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to another installment of Live in the 55. Today we're going to talk about my book, The Ashes. I wrote it a few years back, right after my friend Alan passed away. It was a really difficult thing. Alan and myself and our friends collectively, most of us knew Alan since the 5th grade, myself included. He was an interesting guy, really bright, highly intelligent, loyal and trusted friend. And he's gone, and the story affected me, and I wrote a story about it. Some of it's true, some of it's not true. A lot of it's fiction, but I kind of interweave these two things together to make a cohesive story to hopefully, put it in print, how I feel about the whole thing, because it was a tragic thing that happened, and it affected me deeply. And I'll go into why a little bit here. Right after I published this, I started doing interviews. I was doing podcasts, and I was doing them pretty regularly, and it was a hard time for me. Like, sometimes I'd get very choked up on these podcasts, and there was just nowhere for me to go with it. And I thought writing this would kind of change that, but it really didn't, and that just is what it is. So after a considerable amount of time of doing these podcasts, as a guest, pitching the book, I kind of just put it on the back burner. And then life got busy. Other things happened. My mom got sick, dementia, Alzheimer's. She passed away. Nadia and I decided to up and move to California after our daughter got married, and our son moved to Florida, and here we are. I think enough time has passed where I don't mind talking about it again. And there were some reasons why it was a hard time. I'm not going to go into every single reason, but here's a couple. Alan, like I said, and I knew each other since the 5th grade, but also there was this intangible knowledge of each other. As you grow older, as you move out into the world, your friends tend to change. You meet new people, you do new things. And Alan was like this one constant that was always there, and he knew the me from that whole span of life, from that 5th grade all the way up to present day. And when you lose someone that you've known that deeply for that length of time, you also lose a very big chunk of yourself, because there were things that man knew about me that nobody else knew. You know what I mean? The closest person I could think of would be my brother. And that is it. And when something like that happens, when it's someone that you've known for so long, you lose not just them, but a big piece of you as well. And what I tried to convey with this story is that was really my biggest hurdle to overcome, is that loss of my friend, and with him a big loss of a piece of me, a piece that I'll just never see again. And so it's good to be able to kind of talk about this. And I want to tell you how the story is told. The story is told in reality and fiction. Present day for back when it happened, the sequences the sequences of events that happened right after he wound up in the hospital, and this backstory that kind of mimics that, but is in a faraway place that is complete and utter fantasy and perhaps even science fiction. What I tried to do with it is kind of juxtapose those two positions as almost competing dimensions, and so I think I pulled it off. But if you take a look at it and give it a read, you'll find out for yourself whether or not I did pull it off. And a large part of the story, there's ultimately this snake of fire that kind of rules the world and takes what was tangible and valuable at that period of time from it in its own way. And I don't really want to get into the details of how it does that, but whenever he speaks in poetry. And there's a reason for that too. It's because a lot of my life I've dabbled in songwriting, poetry, things of that nature, and I just thought it suited the snake. There had to be something different about him, and that's his difference. Aside from the fact that he's evil and terrible, He only speaks in poetry. And there's some cars in the book too. Well, I don't know if there's some cars. There's one car at least. I don't know if anybody, well, at least from our family ties and in that period of time, the people we went to school with and all that, remember my 68 Chevelle. I really didn't have it that long. I bought it from one of Lombardo's, not Artie, but his brother, Richie Lombardo I bought it from. And we turned it into a rally car and we took it down to Forked River. Anyway, fast forward. In the story, a lot of the sequence of terrible events happens in Forked River. At night, during a terrible storm, and the Snake of Fire winds up there. And this 68 Chevelle features prominently in that section of the book. And I'm not going to say any more about it, but it's one of my favorite sections. It just takes me back to a place where John and I and even Alan had been down there. We would go camping for these 3-day weekends, like Memorial Day, Labor Day, and we would take down there some car and turn it into a rally car, rip around the woods, wah, 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 do our thing, and with a whole bunch of other lunatics that were doing pretty much the same thing. Anyway, in a fantasy world, that takes place there, but in its own way. There are a few people I wanted to mention. My brother John, him and Alan, real tight for the longest time. They were part of this like lone moped gang in Ramsey where they would just do some dastardly things that I wish I could tell you, but they're just so funny. They're just so funny. If you could hear the two of them telling the tale together, your eyes would be blowing out of your head. You'd be laughing so hard. It would just be, God bless. So there's my brother John. There's Rob Purcell, who was friends with Alan forever and ever and ever. There's Dr. Cunnins, again, another loyal and trusted friend, and Sue Beisler. Sue Beisler is interesting because Sue has a story to tell, and I'm not going to get that into it. But if I ever get this show going, I'd certainly love to hear it. I guess that's really all I want to say about the book. I enjoyed writing it. It was both hard and easy to write at the same time. I mean, it was hard on an emotional level, but on a physical level, it just kind of wrote itself. I climbed in front of the computer every day and just started going for it, and it just went the way that it went. And it's no literary masterpiece. It's no Hemingway or Stephen King or anything like that. But it's a good story, and it has a terrible ending, and it is what it is, and that's just a small microcosm of life. And I'd be real surprised if not more than a few people could actually relate. So, where do you find it? It's on Amazon, available as a paperback, as The Ashes by Hollywood Capone. It's also there as a Kindle, and you can get it as an audiobook. I'm on Instagram under my nom de plume, which is Hollywood Capone. You can find it there. On Facebook as The Ashes. You can find my personal page on Facebook, Bill Capone, and you can find The Ashes through there, and that's pretty much it. I'm on Linktree too. I don't know if you can find me there, but search Hollywood Capone on Linktree, and it'll probably get you a number of different links where you can find me in here, there, and everywhere. But Amazon, it's on there as The Ashes by Hollywood Capone. It's a great read. It's not expensive, and maybe you'll get a thing or two out of it. But at any rate, I want to say thanks for tuning in. Thanks for giving me the time of day on this short little bit, riff, whatever you want to call it, and I will see you next time, live in the 55.